Hello everybody, welcome to this instruction video. In this video I'd like to show you part 1 of Rozeta. Rozeta is the Scheepjes 2019 and has been designed by Tatjana from Lillebjorn Crochet. In part 1 we'll be making this beautiful flower pattern, and I'll be showing you just step by step how to do all of these rounds. I'm using one of the kits that go along with this cowl. I'm using our tribe yarn. This is one of the kits. There are several other kits also. And with the Our Tribe yarn I'm using a 3.5mm hook. If you have one of the Color Crafter kits you need a 4mm hook. So I'll take you through the rounds that make up part 1. I want to thank you for watching. Hope it's a useful video for you. Round 1. I have here yarn A. With yarn A we're going to make a magic ring. To make a magic ring I've got here the short yarn tail. Here's my working yarn. I'm just going to fold over and let them cross. Just do that again. So I'm just making a loop, just holding them like that. So here's the short end. Then with my hook I'm going to go underneath and grab my working yarn. So I'm going to go underneath through the loop, then grab the working yarn, bring it forward through that big loop, then hold it just a little tight, and then I'm going to pull my working yarn through again. Now this all opened up, so if you don't like that you do it again, otherwise you can just pull that close. See, if I pull my working yarn you see that loop there closes. And that's how to make a magic loop. I'll show you again. Some people call them magic ring, like magic loop, both the same. Cross over, underneath, pick up your working yarn, pick up the yarn again and pull through. Then you're ready to start. Chain 2. This chain 2 does not count as a stitch. You'll be doing a lot of these chain 2s in this pattern. They never count as a stitch. Then in the ring, so in this big opening here, you're going to do 12 trebles. I'm just going to close the opening a little bit. If you pull on your yarn tail, the ring closes because it's just a bit too big, and it's just slightly easier if it isn't too big. So 12 trebles in the ring. So yarn over, and then in the ring work 12 trebles. 1, 2, this is 3, continue until you have 12, 4, this is 11 and 12, there we go, 12 trebles. Going to pull the yarn tail, and as you do so that's going to close that ring there. It's going to close. You might just have to help it a little bit because you want this first stitch and your last stitch to kind of end up next to one another, so you might have to just massage that a little bit into place. There we go. Now I've got it nice and round, and now we're going to close on the first stitch with a slip stitch. And you see there, that's the chain 2. You're going to skip that because this first treble, so that's a full stitch at the top there, that's where you're going to close. So here, this is the first full stitch. In that stitch, close with a slip stitch. There we go. And that's round 1. Round 2. In round 2 we're going to work 2 trebles in every stitch. I'm going to start again with the chain 2. Now remember, this chain 2 counts for nothing. This is not a stitch, so you're just going to ignore that chain 2 further on for the rest. So this is the stitch we're currently in. See there, that opening, that's the stitch where we're currently in. So starting in that stitch, going to work 2 trebles yarn over, then the first one and the second one. Then come to the next stitch and work 2 trebles. So I'm going to work 2 trebles in every stitch. And in the third stitch, work 2 trebles. Continue like this all the way around. It's got 2 trebles there. So continue all the way around, work 2 trebles in every stitch, and then here I'll just show you that join again. When you're all the way around, you see here you have 24 trebles and you have that starting chain 2. Now again close on the first stitch with a slip stitch. So again ignore that chain 2 and come here to the first stitch. It's your that first full V you have there, and close with a slip stitch. That completes round 2. In this round we're going to start using 2 colors. So up to now you've used yarn A, for me that's the green yarn, but from now on you're also going to be needing color B, so for me that's this nice pastel color changing yarn. So get your yarn B ready as well, and then I'll show you exactly when to use which color. Now for round 3, I'm going to start with color A, and again chain 2, but this is not a stitch. Now we're going to work 1 treble in the stitch, then 2 in the next, and then 1 treble again. So in the stitch that we started, that we're currently in with the slip stitch in that same position, work 1 treble. In the next stitch work 2. That's 1 and 2. Now you've done an increase, and in the following stitch work 1 treble. And this last treble we're going to use to change colors, because after that we need color B. So I'm going to start the treble, and now I have 2 loops on my hook, and this is the point where you take color B. So here I have color B. I just need to have a bit more yarn. There we go. Color B. Give yourself a bit of a yarn tail, and then do the yarn over of this stitch with color B. So yarn over and pull through, and now you've got color B on your hook as you're working yarn. My yarn tail, I'm just going to hold that here to the back, and my green yarn, I'm just going to pull back a little bit. You see you've kind of opened up that stitch there, so I'm just going to pull that back a bit, and that kind of tidies up that last stitch there. Now with color B, work 2 trebles in the next stitch. So I'm going to yarn over, and in the next stitch, this one here, I'm going to work 2 trebles. And while I'm doing this, I'm going to work over the green yarn. I'm going to work over that. So I've got the green yarn to the back, kind of behind my stitch. Then yarn over. That's the first treble. And now do the second treble. So you've still got that green yarn there. And take off, and now I need to change back to color A. So I've got 2 loops on my hook, then swapping the pastel yarn for the green yarn. I'm going to yarn over with the green and pull through. And again you see you kind of opened up that loop with the pastel yarn. So I'm just going to pull that slightly back, and then you see that tidies up your stitch again. this is your repeat unit. I'm going to do this all the way around. I'll show you this entire repeat once more, or maybe even twice more, because this is the essence of tapestry crochet. So yarn over. In the next stitch, do 1 treble. You can see I'm going to work over the pastel yarn. I've got it to the back of the stitches so that you don't see it from the front. So it's 1 treble. And then in the next stitch, work 2 trebles. So that's 1 and 2. You can see how my pastel yarn there is completely to the back, so when you look at it from the front you don't see that stitch, that yarn at all. But you're really having it to the back. It's like almost like a third little loop there to the back that you're covering. And then 1 more treble, and then on that treble we're going to change colors again. So insert into the stitch, pick up the yarn, take off 2 loops, stop, because now we're going to change to the color B. So I'm going to swap colors. So I'm going to bring that one back and bring my pastel one up. So this is this is my yarn tail. Don't worry about that one. I'm just going to move that to one side that you don't get confused by which thread is which. And then yarn over with the pastel with color B. And I'm just again going to just pull that a little bit tighter to make it nice and pretty. In the next stitch, work 2 trebles with color B. So that's 1 and 2, and as you can see, I'm again going to work over the green yarn. Take off 2. And now we've got 2 loops on your hook. I'm going to just bring my color A back up and pull through. Now you've done the repeat 2 times. I'll show you once more, and then I'm going to work the rest, and then I'll just show you how to do the closing. So 1 treble in the next stitch, work over the pastel, work over color B in my case. If you have a different kit, this will of course be a different color. In the next stitch, work 2 trebles. So 1 and 2. This green yarn is just fabulous. I really like this yarn. And then the next one here, work 1 treble. And then change colors. So bring color B back up and pull through. In the next stitch, work 2 trebles with color B. So that's 1 and 2. And now I need to change colors back, so color B needs to come back up. And there we go. I'm just going to tidy that stitch. Now done the repeat 3 times with you. I'm going to do 3 more, and then I'll just see you here. Just for the when you have color B on your hook, I'll just show you those last stitches and how to close. You're almost finished at the end of round 3. I've just changed to color B on my hook, and I need to work 2 trebles in color B. And you've got 1 stitch left. See there, the last stitch. That's the point where you are right now. I'm just going to work 2 trebles in that stitch. Of course, also work over yarn A while you do so. It's 1, and here's number 2. And now I'm going to change back to color A. Change to color A. Just going to tidy that stitch a bit. And now with color A on your hook, with that loop, close with a slip stitch on the first stitch. And you see there's the chain 2, there's the first stitch. So I'm just going to insert through there and bring up my yarn B. I'm going to bring that up to where I'm at. So now I've got, in essence, got 3 loops over there, and pull through everything. And that's complete round 3. If you look here to the back, you can see you've brought color B, that you've brought it up to where you are right now. So you can continue with round 4, and you also have color B here to the back. So that's round 3. Round 4. Round 4 is from here on, it's going to be similar with the idea of changing colors. I'll be showing you the repeat a bit slow again in this round, and at a certain point we'll start picking up speed. Chain 2. This is your first stitches, just to get you to the height. This does not count as a full stitch. In the position where you're currently at, work 1 treble and work over color B. So having that to the back of your work, cover that stitch, that thread with a stitch. In the next stitch, work 2 trebles. So that's 1 and 2. In the next 2 stitches, work 1 treble on each. So on those, you've got those 2 green stitches left, work 1 treble on each. Still covering yarn A as you go. Or sorry, yarn B as you go. We're working with yarn A. And 1 treble on the next stitch, and complete that stitch by changing color. And then we're going to complete it by coming with yarn B here and pull through. With yarn B on your hook, on the next stitch work 1 treble, and the stitch after work 2 trebles. The next stitch going to work 1 treble. See, I'm going to cover, take yarn A with me to the back. So that's 1 treble, and then in the next stitch work 2. So that's 1, and here comes number 2. And going to change back to yarn A. Take yarn A and pull through. That's your full repeat there. I'm going to show you the repeat once more, and then you can go all the way around again. Next stitch, work 1 treble. In the following stitch, work 2. So this is 1, and the stitch after 2, and then on the next stitches work 1 treble on each. You've got 2 stitches here, so that's 1 treble, and your next stitch is your second. And change color to yarn B on your last yarn over here. next stitches with yarn B, work 1 treble on the first stitch, taking yarn A with you, and on the second stitch here work 2 trebles. So 1 and on the last yarn over, change to color B. Just going to pull that thread, change to color A. These A's and B's, you really got to keep track of them. I've now done the repeat 2 times. Go all the way around again, and then I'll just see you here when you have color B on your hook, just to show you that closing one more time. Almost round. I need to work 2 more trebles in this last stitch here. So in there, working over yarn A, 1 and 2, but before completing the second stitch, bring yarn A back up. There we go. Yarn A and change colors. I'm going to close with a slip stitch again. Here's the first full stitch up there. The chain 2 you're going to ignore. Insert through that stitch. Bring the thread from color B up and close with a slip stitch. So this is the same join we've done in the previous round. That completes round 4. Round 5, with yarn A we're going to start again, chain 2, so this is not a stitch. In that first stitch work 1 treble, and the stitch after work 1 treble, and again still covering yarn A to the back. In the next stitch you work 2 trebles. That's 1 and 2, and the next 2 stitches work 1 on each, 1 treble on each. So 1 and here is 2. Going to change colors on that last stitch, and there we go. So what you've done here is in the center stitch you had 5 stitches, then in the center stitch you did the increase, and then you've got one in either stitch on either side. So I've got 1 1 2 1 1. That's your rhythm here. With color B working yarn, in the next 3 stitches going to work 1 1 2. That's going to be your rhythm here. So on the first stitch, you see I'm going to work over yarn A, so that's 1 stitch. The next work 1 treble as well. And in the last stitch here, number 3, work 2. So covering yarn A as I do so. It's 1 and 2, and on that last yarn over, just going to change colors back to yarn A. And that's your repeat. I'll show you the repeat once more, maybe a little faster. Going to work 1 1 2. So this is an increase, so work 2 trebles in the 1 stitch, and still covering your thread, your other yarn that you're not using, have that to the back covering it. And then 1 and on your last yarn over, change to color B and then work 1 treble, and in the last position here work 2, still covering the other yarn, so yarn A, the one that you're not using at this moment, and then change to yarn A. There we go. So now done the repeat 2 times, you need to do 4 more, and then here I'll just show you this closing one last time, and after that you'll know how to do that closing. So repeat this and I'll see you here for the last 2 stitches and the closing. Almost round, I have 1 stitch left, need to work 2 trebles in there and then close. In that last stitch work 1 treble, and then the second, and again still covering yarn A, stop, yarn over in color A, and then we're going to close here on the first stitch with a slip stitch using color A. So again, ignore the chain 2, come here to the top of the stitch, bring color B up and close with a slip stitch. You've now completed 5 rounds. Round 6. You have 6 stitches here. We're going to work 2 trebles in the first stitch and 2 trebles in the last stitch, and then change colors for this part here with color B. So with color A, chain 2, this is again not a stitch. In the first stitch, that's here where you already have the join, work 2 trebles and work over color A, sorry, over color B as you do so. That's 1 treble. I just need to move my yarn, there we go. And 2 trebles. So 2 trebles in the first stitch. And the next 4 work 1 on each. So that's 1, 2, 3, and here is 4. Still working over yarn A, keeping it to the back. Your last stitch before you get to the section with yarn B, work 2 trebles. That's 1, and here is 2. Change to yarn B, with the yarn over, and you're ready for the next part. You have here 4 stitches in yarn B. Going to work a treble on each of those. So that's 1, 2, here's 3, and the last one here is 4. And change colors back to yarn A. That is your repeat unit. So on the next stitch, you're going to work 2 trebles. Here, that's the next stitch. Work over yarn B. Here, 2 trebles. And these two trebles here are exactly the same as those two trebles that you started with. So your repeat unit here, work this 5 more times. I've started the first 2 stitches on the next repeat. And here after your last stitch, you're going to change colors again, so exactly the same as for round 5, change colors and then close with a slip stitch. Round 7. This round there's a bit of extra things happening, so I'll take you step by step through this round. Chain 2 again, so that's just to start, it's not a stitch. We're going to start with 2 trebles in the first stitch. So here that's immediately the stitch where we're in. So still working over color B. It's 1 treble and the next. So it's 2 trebles in the same stitch. 2 trebles in that first stitch. Then a treble in the next 2 stitches, so 1 in each. So 1. And then here we're going to make number 2. And now we're going to change to color B. So that's new here. So you're going to start a new pattern here in the middle. And now we're just going to make the 1 stitch in color B. So just the 1 treble. So that means immediately changing back to color A. So we're not even going to work a second stitch, so immediately like that. So just the 1 stitch. And now again with yarn A, 1 treble here in the same stitch. And then again we're going to change yarn back to B again. I'm going to work another treble in the same stitch. Oh, sorry, in the next stitch. Sorry, this one is in the next stitch. And again, change colors to yarn A. I'll show you this full repeat a second time. In the next 2 stitches with color A, going to work a treble. So that's 1 and 2. And then in the next stitch, going to work 2 trebles. So that's 1. And as we finish this last one, going to change colors again. Over these next 4 stitches we're going to work a treble 2 together, and the treble. So in the first stitch we'll work a treble 2 together. We're going to work over the next 2 stitches. And remember, every time I'm still keeping that second thread to the back. So that's the first half of the stitch. Then yarn over and come to the next position. Take off 2 loops, 3 loops on your hook, take them off. And then in the last position work 1 treble. And change to color A. So there were quite a few things happening in this repeat. This is the full repeat. I'll show it to you once more. So let's do that repeat once more, because this is just a tricky repeat here, round 7. In the next stitch, so that's going to be the first green stitch there, do 2 trebles in that one stitch. So that's going to be 1 and 2. And then over the next 2 stitches work a treble in each. So that's 1 and here is 2. And before finishing that second stitch, change to color B. In the next stitch we're going to work 1 stitch from color B and 1 stitch from color A. So first a stitch from color B, and then change colors again, and then in the same stitch, same position, work a green stitch and change colors. In the next position, work 1 stitch from color B and change colors. And then over the next 2 stitches, work a double crochet, a treble crochet in each with the green yarn. It's 1 and 2, and then finish with 2 trebles in the last stitch, that last green stitch there. And then we're going to change colors back to yarn B. It's 1 and 2, over these 4 stitches, a treble 2 together, and a treble. So in the first stitch work a treble. So the 2 together is worked over 2 stitches. So in the first one, pick up a loop, take off 2, then come to the next position, take off a loop, take off 2, take off all in one go. Last position, work 1 stitch, 1 treble, and take them off with the green yarn. So that was the repeat 2 times. You can see here there was just quite a few things happening. So do this now 4 more times, and then when you get here, change back to the green yarn, to yarn A, and close with a slip stitch. Before we start round 8, just a word on colors. I have an Our Tribe kit, so I'm going to leave both my threads attached, and I'm just going to continue working with both the yarns A and B that I already have attached. If you have a color crafter kit, you need to change yarn B, so that's the lighter one for me, this yarn. Change this to number C. So check out what's your color C and change. Where I use B, you're going to be using C. If you have Our Tribe kit, just continue on. If you have a color crafter kit, change yarn B for C. So to start round 8, I'm going to start again with a chain 2. Now this is not a stitch, just to get you to the correct height. On the first 4 stitches, so those are the green stitches here for me, I'm going to work a treble on each of those. In that first stitch, and still just working over the yarn that I'm not using. Going to be 1, 2, this here is 3, and then on number 4 here I'm going to change colors, and then I'm going to change to color B because I have Our Tribe kit, If you have a color crafter kit, this is now color C that you have on here. In the next stitch, so that's the light stitch here, I'm going to work 2 trebles on that one stitch. 1 and 2, so 2 stitches in the one position, and change back to yarn A and that last yarn over. In the next stitch, I'm going to work 2 trebles with yarn A. So 1 and 2, so in that same position, and then again swap colors back. So with your color B or C, I'm going to work 2 trebles in the next stitch. So 1 and 2, changing colors back to the next position. I have 4 stitches here in the green. On those 4, work a treble on each. So there's the first one. That's 1, 2, and 3, and 4. Here number 4 is the last one, so we're going to change colors again here. There we go. So what you've just done here on this section is you've worked 4 trebles in the green, then 2, 2, 2, alternating colors, and then 4 again. So 4, 2, 2, 2, 4. The section here with color B, going to work a treble 2 together and a treble. So on the first 2 stitches, going to work a decrease. So with color B or color C if you have the color crafter kit, the first leg of the treble 2 together, then come to the next stitch, covering the yarn you don't need, taking it with you, take them all off. In the last stitch, work 1 treble and change back to yarn A. There we go. This is your repeat unit. You're going to do that 5 more times. So you're going to work 4 trebles, then 2, 2, 2 in those colors, in the white, the green, the white, and then 4 trebles, and then again a treble 2 together and a treble. Go all the way around. After you've done your last treble here, change back to yarn A and close with a slip stitch. Round 9. In this round we're going to be working increases on these center 3 little groups here, those 2, 2, 2 stitches. We're going to be working increases on those, and on the other stitches, so these 4 here, these 4 and these 2, we're going to be working 1 stitch on each. So that's more or less the pattern that we're going to be following in this round. So I'll show you the repeat. Chain 2, this is not a stitch, just to get you to the working height. Now on the first 4 stitches, work 1 treble on each. So in the first stitch here, work a treble, and of course also work over yarn B. So that's 1, 2, 3, and this here is number 4. And on treble number 4 we're going to change colors. So I'm just going to bring up yarn B and if you have color crafter, this will be yarn C, and change colors. On these 2 stitches, the first one we're going to work 2 trebles and then 1 treble, so 2, 1. And the first stitch work 2 trebles, 1 and 2, and on that second stitch work 1 treble. And we're going to change colors, so that means going back to yarn A when you finish the stitch. On your next 2 stitches, the first one we're going to work 1 treble and the second one we're going to work 2 trebles. So that's 1 treble and the second one is 2. And 2. And then we change colors again to yarn B or C if you have color crafter. In the next 2 stitches, in the first one work 1 treble and in the second one work 2 trebles. 1 stitch and in the next one make 2. 1 and 2, and again change colors back to yarn A. On the next 4 stitches, work 1 treble on each. So that's 1, 2, 3, and this here is number 4, and as we make number 4, change back to yarn B. On the next 2 stitches, you've got 2 stitches left here before we're back at the starting point. On those 2 stitches, make a treble on each of those. So that's, oh dear, wait, I've got the wrong color yarn there. You're working with the color B, of course. And that's 1, and this is 2, and then change colors back to yarn A. There you go. And that is your entire repeat unit there. So the next stitch, this one here, is going to be the first of 4, and that's the same as these 4 we made here. So this is your repeat. Do this 7 more times, and after you've done your last treble here, I'm going to change colors exactly like I've done here, and then close on that first stitch with a slip stitch. Round 10, again starting with a chain 2, which is not a stitch, and on the first 4 stitches we make a treble on each. And again, still working over your thread to the back. That's 1, 2, 3, and here on the last one, number 4, also change colors to yarn B or C, depending on which kit you have. On the next 3 stitches, these 3 that I have in pastel here, you're going to do an increase on the first. You're going to work 2 trebles in the first stitch and then 1, 1. So in the first treble, 2 stitch, first treble work 2 trebles. It's 1, 2, and then on the next 2 stitches work 1 treble on each. So that's 1 and 2, and then on the second stitch change back to yarn A. On On the next 3 stitches in yarn A, you're going to work 1 treble. In the center you work 2, and on the third one you work 1. So it's going to be 1, 2, 1. So 1 treble, 2 trebles, 1 and 2 in that 1 stitch, and then the last one you work 1 treble. And then change colors back to yarn A, or sorry, B, from A to B. On the next 3 stitches with yarn B or C, you're going to work 1 treble in the first 2, and in the third stitch you work 2. So it's going to be 1, 1, 2. That's 1 stitch, 1 stitch, and then here on the last one you work 2. 1 and on that last stitch change colors again and 2. There you go. The next 4 stitches, won't surprise, you're going to work a treble on each. So that's 1, I just need a bit more yarn, 1, remember to keep working over the second thread to the back, 3, and here's the last one, 4, and change colors back to yarn B. Your last stitch for the repeat, on these 2 trebles you have here in the pastel, going to work a treble 2 together. So yarn over in the first leg, first stitch, pick up a leg, take off 2, then yarn over and come to that second stitch, take off 2 loops, 3 loops on your hook, and now you're going to take them all off with yarn A, because you want to switch back to yarn A. And then that is your entire repeat unit. You're going to do all of this 5 more times. So you're going to work the 4 trebles, etc, etc, go all the way around. And here after your last treble 2 together, change colors just like I've done here, and then close on your first stitch with a slip stitch. Round 11, currently in the first of those 4 green stitches here, we're just going to slip stitch to the next stitch. So that second one there, we're just going to slip stitch to that position. There we go. Chain 2, this is again not a stitch. Now we're ready to start the repeat unit. Here in the stitch where we're currently in, going to do 2 trebles. And then do make sure, especially now because you've done the slip stitch, that you take that thread with you, because a slip stitch will mean that you don't have the thread from yarn B with you. So 2 trebles, 1 and 2. On the next 2 stitches, 1 treble on each. 1 and 2, and change colors to yarn B. There you go. On the next 4 stitches we're going to work 2 in the first one, and then 1 on each on the next 3, so it's 2 and then 1, 1, 1. In the first stitch work 2 trebles, 1 and 2, and then 1 treble on each of the next 3 stitches. It was 1, 2, and 3, and on this third stitch change to yarn A. There we go. These 4 stitches here in yarn A going to work a treble on each, so that's nice and easy. That's 1. I just need to get my yarn organized here. That's 1, 2, 3, and here the last one, 4 trebles, and change colors to yarn B again. On the next 4 stitches, going to work 3, so on the first 3 work 1, and then 2 in the here in the last one, so it's 1, 1, 1 and 2. So this is stitch 1, 2, and then here's the third one, 3 trebles, and then in this 4th stitch we work 2 trebles. 1, and there goes my yarn ball, 1 and 2, and change colors back to thread A. There we go. Now we're almost back to at the start of the repeat unit. On the next stitch, on the next 2 stitches, actually work 1 treble on each. So that's 1, and on the next stitch work 1 treble. Here in the 3rd stitch, going to work 2 trebles. So that's 1 and 2. And now just pay a little bit of attention, because over the next 3 stitches, 1, 2, 3, we're going to work a treble 3 together. So the green stitch here, this center stitch, which is in the white, and then the green stitch again. So yarn over in the first stitch, pick up a loop, take off 2, yarn over, come to the next stitch. That's going to be the center one there. Pick up a loop, take off 2, and the 3rd time yarn over in the next stitch. So you're still working over your thread. Take off 2 loops. At this point you have 4 loops on your hook. Take them all off. And now you're actually at the beginning of your repeat unit again. So in the next stitch we're going to work 2 trebles, so 1 and 2, so 2 trebles in that 1 stitch, and then a treble on each of the next 2. So that's 1 and 2, and now we change back to yarn A again. Where is it? Here it is. Oh, sorry, we changed to yarn B. We currently had yarn A. There we go. And that's your repeat unit plus a few extra stitches. So you can see here that after the treble 3 together, you're going to end up in that stitch there. So this here is your repeat unit. So these 3 stitches, these last 3 stitches I made, are those 3 stitches I worked there as well. Those 3 there are those 3. So everything we've just done, do that, well, basically 5 more times, and you're going to finish. You're going to work here a treble 3 together, and the last leg of the treble 3 together is going to be in the stitch that where you had that slip stitch join, and then close on this first stitch here with the slip stitch. So again, this round is just following the pattern, and then just be sure to do that treble 3 together there over this point. Round 12. I'm going to start again with a chain 2. And this is just to get you to the correct height. a double crochet in the first 2 stitches. Now the first one is going to be here, the one we're already in. We work a treble in there. Sorry, I just said a double. This is a treble. And then in the next stitch work a treble also. On those last 2 stitches work a treble 2 together. So yarn over in the first stitch, take off 2, and then in the next stitch also yarn over. Now have 3 loops on your hook. Gonna take them off, but while you do so, change colors to yarn B. With yarn B, you have 5 stitches here. You're going to work 2 trebles on the first and 2 on the last, and then 1 on each in the middle. First stitch you work 2 trebles. So 1, 2. Then the center stitches work 1 on each. So 1, 2, 3, and then here in the last stitch work 2 trebles again. Oh, again. Just 1, and this is 2, and then we change colors to yarn A again. 4 stitches in yarn A, work a treble on each. That's 1, 2, 3, and here we go 4, and 4 we're going to change colors again to yarn B. Going to repeat here on yarn these stitches from yarn B the same as we did on there. So it's 2 on the first, then 1 on each in the middle, and 2 on the last. So it's the same pattern. So 2 trebles in the first, 1, 2, then 1 on each on the center, 3, 1, 2, 3, then here on the last stitch work 2 trebles. 1, 2, and then we change colors back to yarn A. There we go. Now for the last part of the repeat, on the first 2 stitches work a treble 2 together. That's the first leg, and then come to the next stitch where you pick up the second leg and take them all off. We're going to work 5 trebles now, but actually the way the pattern is written as 3 and 2, and that has to do with the repeat. So we're going to work 3 trebles. So that's 1, 2, and 3. And now you are officially at the end of the repeat. So the next stitch is the same as the first stitch we did here. But I'll just show you this the next bit also. So if you just work 3 trebles, and now you're going to work 2 more, but now you're already starting your next repeat unit. So that's 1 and 2. So now you've worked 5 trebles here. Then over the last 2 stitches work a treble 2 together. And then we're going to change colors also. It's going to be 1 and 2, and now I've changed colors to yarn B. And now this point here is of course the same as on that point there. So you do the repeat 5 more times, and keeping in mind that I've already started the next repeat with you. So that means when you get here, after you've worked those last 3 trebles, you're going to close immediately on the first stitch here with the slip stitch. Round 13, I'm going to do a chain 2. Now the first stitch, so that's where we're currently in with the slip stitch, I'm going to make a treble in there. So 1 treble. And over the next 2 stitches, the last 2 green stitches here, do a treble 2 together. So that's 1, 2, and now we're going to change colors when we take off the loops and take them off. In yarn B, over the next few stitches, what I'm going to do is on the first 3 stitches, sorry, the first stitch we do 2 trebles, then the next 2 stitches do 1 treble, and then do 2 trebles again in 1 stitch, and then do 3 trebles on the last stitches. The first one gets 2 trebles, 1 and 2, then 1 treble on the next 2 stitches, so 1 stitch and 1 stitch. On the next stitch do 2 trebles again, so that is 1 and 2 in the same position, and on your last 3 stitches here do 1 treble on each. So that's 1, 2, and here on the third one we change colors. Now, the first 3 stitches in yarn A we do a treble on each. That's going to be 1, 2, 3, and then on your last stitch you work 2 trebles in the 1 stitch. 1 and 2, and now we're going to change colors back to color B. There we go. Now for color B, going to do the same as we did on this side, but kind of in reverse order. So I'm going to start with 3 trebles, 1 on each. So that's 1 stitch and 2, and on the next stitch is 3. So you work 1 treble on the first 3 stitches. And the next stitch you work 2 trebles. Just 1 and 2. Then work 1 treble on the next 2 stitches. That's 1 treble, and in the next stitch also work 1 treble. Your last stitch here, going to work 2 trebles in there. It's 1, and here with 2 you're going to change colors on that last yarn over. There we go. Almost back to the start of the repeat unit. On the first 2 stitches, going to work a treble 2 together over the first 2 stitches. That's 1 leg, come to the next stitch, second leg, take them all off. Then a treble on the first 2 stitches, but I'm actually going to work 3 because the first 2 are going to be the end of the repeat, and then the 3rd stitch is going to be the start of the new repeat. It's just like the last round where this section flows into one another. So that's 1 and 2, and now I'm at the end of the repeat unit. So to start the next repeat unit, another treble. So now you have 2 next to one another, and then on the last 2 stitches here work a treble 2 together. So 1, 2, and again switch colors to yarn B. There we go. And this point is the same as on that point there. So this was the repeat unit. Do this all the way around, and here after you've done your last treble, close on your first stitch with a slip stitch. Round 14, last round of this part. Chain 2. Now in the first 2 stitches, so it's where we're currently in and the next stitch, going to do a treble 2 together. Take off 2 loops, and then come to the next stitch, take off 2 loops, and these 3 loops you're going to finish off with color B. There we go. Now for the next few stitches, going to work 2 trebles on the first stitch. So 1 and 2. So 2 trebles on the first stitch. Then 1 treble on the next 6 stitches. That's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and here is number 6. So treble on 6 stitches. You have 2 stitches left, 2 trebles in the next stitch, 1 and a second one in the same position. You have 1 stitch left and you make 1 treble on there. And then you also change colors to yarn A. Next 5 stitches, 5 trebles in yarn A, so 1 on each. So 1, 2, 3, 3, and this is 4, and this here is 5. And then you change back to yarn A, oh, sorry, from A you change to B. There we go. On these stitches we're going to do the same as on that side, but in reverse order. Again, so it in a mirror image. So the first stitch, 1 treble, the next stitch you work 2, and remember you're still working over the thread that you're not using. It's a continuous process here. So you get 1 treble in the first stitch, 2 in the second. Over the next 6 stitches you work 1 treble in each. It's 1, 2, 3, 4. This is 5, and then the last stitch is 6. Whoop. Come on. There we go. 6 trebles. Your last stitch, work 2 trebles on that 1 position. So that's 1 and the second one. And then to change colors, back to yarn A on that last yarn over. There we go. And these next 5 stitches we're going to finish the repeat and start the next one. So a treble 2 together on the first 2 stitches and take them off, and then 1 treble in the next stitch. Now this completes your repeat unit. So the next stitch is going to be a treble 2 together again. 1 leg, and then change back to yarn B. So now I've already started the second repeat with you. So everything we've just done, do this 5 more times, and here after you've worked that last treble, you're going to close on this treble 2 together. You're going to close on that stitch with a slip stitch. When you're at the end of round 14, this is what your work looks like. You can now cut yarn B, so that's this thread here. You can cut that off. We're going to be using a different color in the next round. Also, if you have the color craft, you can cut yarn C. So you can cut your second color, and the main color for me, that's the green. You leave that attached. We'll continue with that next week. So where are we now on size? If you have the Our Tribe version, like I have, you should be at about 27 centimeters or so. Let's just quickly have a look. Here I am at about 27 and a bit, 27.3 or so. Here I'm at 26 and a half. Here I am at exactly 27. So you should just measure your work a bit and get a bit of a feeling of where you are. You should be at about 27 centimeters diameter if you are the Our Tribe yarn. If you have the color crafted slightly larger, you should be at about 30 and a half. So that gives you an idea on size. If you want to check while you're working, each round of stitches, these stitches are about 1 centimeter high in the Our Tribe yarn and about 1.1 in the color crafter. So if you want to measure your work all through the pattern, basically, you can check that as an extra gauge. If you want to know how much yarn you've used, please check the written pattern because yarn amounts are given in there. Let's just take a moment to look at the back, so you just have a feeling of what your work looks like. Here I've got the threads. I'll work those away now because you will not be needing them anymore, so we'll be connecting new yarns. This is what your pattern looks like from the back. One thing to make sure of is that you haven't pulled the thread that you're working with yet. You haven't pulled that tight, because then this work will start doing this. So make sure that you're always nice and relaxed with the yarn that you're carrying. And then you can see here at the back, you don't really see that second thread either. So if I just zoom in a bit, maybe that'll help you just see it a bit clearer. You can see here the second thread that you're carrying is nicely worked over it, also from the back. So you've made, just make sure that your tension is nice and even, that it doesn't pucker or anything like that. So if I just zoom back out again, this is where you are at the back, and this is your work from the front. There we go. So check your gauge, adjust the hook size maybe if needed. If your work is really pulling in, so if it's really doing this, I really want to encourage you to just take that out and do it again, because it's not going to be beautiful when your blanket is finished. And for the rest, that brings us to the end of part 1. Thank you for watching, and hope to see you next time.